Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Hi, my name is Vivian Acquah, and I'm the inclusion strategist, but also the host of Let's Humanize the Workplace, where I have amazing conversation with my guest speakers. I'm an inclusion strategist, and I help many organizations, many managers with helping them with the teams regarding effective collaboration and communication and so many more. So anything that has to do with collaborating, effective communication, or it's related to let's design a new team recipe, because I feel like so many teams are missing a team foundation or a recipe to collaborate effectively. Know that you can reach out to me as well. And today I have the amazing Ella. I've seen Ella in different occasions as well. And Ella is going to talk about something, but I do need to bring up her bio so that I can introduce her properly. So Ella is the founder of Emerge Collaboration and the author of The Power of Emergence. She's also a Wharton MBA and a 30-year enterprise leader. She helps organizations deepen understanding of gender identity, which we are going to dive in a little bit more, and also about creating genuine belonging as well. So welcome, Ella. Thank you for being here.
Vivian, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here with you today, and thank you for the nice introduction.
Likewise. So let's dive in. This is a question that I ask all my guest speakers because everybody has a different understanding when it comes to humanizing the workplace. What's your definition for humanizing the workplace?
It's a great first question to start this podcast off with. Thank you. Let's see. I define humanizing the workplace where everyone can feel safe to not perform any
Mhm.
version of themselves, meaning they don't have to hide anything. And there's two nuances I think I'd like to also just call out
Mhm.
with that definition. One is, when people don't have to perform a version of themselves, they've got more mental bandwidth, more
Yeah.
ability for creativity, and more connection with people and productivity. So it's good for the bottom line of organizations when everyone doesn't have to perform any version of themselves. The
Yeah.
second thing I want to call out, and it's why I wrote my book, is that we don't have full humanizing of the workplace until everyone feels comfortable to be themselves. And so, by definition, what I just said, people might think that I'm talking about the minority, right? Those that are different in any way. In this
Yeah.
case, we're talking about gender identity today, which really helps gender diverse and transgender people. But I wrote my book for the subset of the majority. The majority often is very uncomfortable with this segment of the workforce. Um, Whether just like I don't know what this is and I don't want to like engage with them, to I'm such an ally but I'm nervous I'm going to screw up, right? And so therefore there's also nervousness present. So
Yeah.
from my perspective, this definition of humanizing the workplace extends very importantly to that majority as well, so that they're comfortable. And
I
that's
I I agree. Sorry, apologies for stopping you, but I really wanted to jump in on the moment that you shared about people not being able to show up as themselves is mentally toxin, right? Or it's a mental labor. And for me, while you were saying that, I immediately was thinking about code switching, because in a way you're talking about not being able to be yourself. So you're switching to please somebody else, or you're switching to be accepted. Whereas you're diluting your own wine, you're diluting your own lemonade or lemons or whatever. And the mental labor that people are doing at the moment right now is not helpful for effective collaboration and communication. It's not helpful for them to connect themselves with the team goal, with the company goal, and also to feel okay with when you're sitting on a Sunday afternoon. There have been occasions where I felt a pit in my stomach, because the next day I'm going to work and the work is not the psychological safe space to be there. So while you were sharing that, this was a scenario that I was going through, which is very relevant in a workplace where we need to show up as a human and we need to humanize the workplaces as well. So thank you for your insight, Ella.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Now I'm gonna go a different direction, and that is the direction of music. I love music, no matter what music. Music has to be music for me is fuel for my soul. It's a way for me to connect with the theme, but it can also be very helpful when I'm doing deep focus. So when I'm doing deep focus work, I listen to the rainforest because it helps. It distracts me, and also it helps me be focused. So I'm curious to what what song energizes you while working or not working? What's your favorite song to listen to?
I never know what to say when people ask me this question because I never remember names of songs. Um,
Okay.
but but there's one song I absolutely love. But when I work, I cannot listen to music. I'm one of those people that needs to have like total quiet to really be able to think. But gosh, I love all music, and it really depends on the time of day and the seasons and day of week and my mood. But there's one song that gets me anytime, and it's Enya's Wild Child.
Song with text, or is it? And I think I need to look it up because I think it. I know Enya, and Enya has a. Let's say I connect Enya with the churchy or the church bell or something like that. Is that
Oh, I
that's
think
one of the
there's
songs, right?
I think one of her songs. Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
not
Okay.
this one. I don't know.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
So can you repeat it again? It's Enya, and then.
the name of the song is Wild Child.
Okay, I'll look it up after our conversation. It's great to be open to new music. And maybe I know it, but I don't know the title of the music yet.
Wait, what's yours? I don't think I caught that.
Mine is let's say today mine is Beyonce. And any song of Beyonce, whether it's inspirational, bigger, or I'm a diva, that can also be a really good. So any song of Beyonce, Beyonce has many variations for every mood, and I just pick one. I just pick one.
Cool.
Yeah. So we are here because you've written a book. And your book, The Power of Emergence, is a personal memoir that you have written. And I am curious about who or what inspired you to write your book, The Power of Emergence.
Thank you. And as you said, it's a memoir.
Hmm.
I want to set some additional context before I fully answer that question. The other context is it's also a leadership book. It's a belonging book. And I wrote it at the highest level because there is a gap between what leaders and teams who are allies, a gap between how they want to show up in the workplace with respect to gender identity and how the gender diverse and transgender workforce receives it, which is why 2/3 of the gender diverse transgender workforce don't feel like they belong. The business case is huge. It's 6 million people in the US in the workforce right now that we're talking about. It'll be 8 million with Gen Z coming in by 2030. And with 2/3 not belonging, um, I felt like there was a gap I could fill. And I'm uniquely positioned to write this book. On the one hand, I have 30 years experience as a leader, driving change in organizations at the intersection between IT, ops, and finance. And I know how organizations work. I know it's important for teams to be able to feel like they can contribute. And on the other hand, I've had this journey on the topic I did not understand. Like
Mhm.
I am so empathetic to how hard gender identity is to understand. I didn't get it. I had to do a lot of inner work. I had to do a lot of studying to understand it even exists. Um, and I also understand, or I can see the experience that gender diverse transgender people have with respect to belonging. It's like a death by a thousand cuts. And I don't think that social media sound bites or before and after pictures or a panel on 20 minutes help people understand this topic. Some companies that want to do the right thing, and many do, focus on training and HR policies, but we haven't moved the needle. So I thought if I go deep and explain what happened on the inside for someone who's gone through it. Are you saying something, Vivian? I can't hear you.
I'm sorry, my son just came in and I'm trying
Oh,
to
That's okay. I don't, maybe I'm talking over her and I didn't want to do that. Okay, I'll continue then. um, okay, so what I was saying was that maybe if I go deep and explain what happened on the inside before, during, and after my emergence, with the objective of speaking to those leaders and their teams in the workforce and helping them understand gender identity through all the different lenses I can think of.
Yeah.
Everything from early childhood to deep therapy to the emergence itself to what happened after I emerged, all with an eye on how can I help people understand gender identity. I think that is how I can make an impact, and that's why I wrote it. And there was a straw that broke the camel's back moment on this one, where I decided I really have to do this. I was at Deloitte Consulting for 14 years, and I was at a position in my career where I had support to go up for partner. And I was meeting with a bunch of senior leaders to talk about that next step. And I realized that maybe there was a book inside of me. And in order for me to write it, I wanted to take a sabbatical. And I
Yeah.
thought, okay, if I'm going to ask for a sabbatical, I need to give them the reason. And most of them didn't know about my medical history, which is what I refer to it as. I'm a woman and I have transgender medical history. And I shared my story with them. You could hear, like, I've never seen 6 senior leaders like all focused and listening. Nobody was multitasking. Nobody was doing email. Nobody was checking text. When you're in a meeting, naturally, some people are going to be off, doing something else, even though they're there. You could hear a pin drop. And for me, that was like, okay, I've got something that I can share that they're actually interested in listening in.
Yeah.
Listening.
Also, what makes me, what I find amazing about what you're doing is you're sharing your personal story to through a memoir, but also you have the ability to help people understand, to be curious, even though you don't know anything, or maybe you have some biases. You are inviting people in to be curious about your journey so that they can apply that same curiosity to their team members as well. And that's where, um, with everything that's happening in the world, without putting labels on it, I feel like the part of curiosity or being curious is often missed. What do you have to say about that?
Um, I do think it's often missed, and at the same time, I know this how polarizing this issue is, and
Yeah.
I'm so
Oh no.
empathetic.
Is it polarized, or are people connecting it with polarization?
Um, it's a great pushback. I would argue that in certain circles, especially in the United States, it's politicized and
Yeah,
therefore polarized.
yeah, yeah,
Unfortunately,
yeah,
uh, I do think most people, and I really do believe this, most people A, totally don't understand it, which I'm so empathetic to, and B, are open to learning more, but haven't had an opportunity to do so.
yeah.
Um, there was something else that I felt like you said I wanted to react to, but it's escaping me right now. Well, did
Come
you
back.
have?
It will
Yeah.
come back. It will come back later, because there's a lot that I wanna ask you also about your book. So let's dive into
Okay.
the next question, because you talk about emergence. So you use the word emergence instead of transition. And why is this language distinction so important to you?
Thank you. First of all, thank
Mhm.
you for the question. It is very important to me. Language creates mental models, and mental models can be helpful, they can be neutral, or they can be harmful. Yes. Oh, exactly. I love that. Yeah.
Words have power.
Words have
Words
so
have
much
power.
power. And in this case, again, I never understood, I didn't know gender identity existed. I did not understand transgender people. I didn't believe that existed. Um, And one of the reasons it took me so long to emerge as myself is because I didn't connect with the language, right? If we look at the word transition, it literally means someone's changed their gender, male to female, female to male. And that was not my experience. My gender identity has always been female. I emerged as myself and I'm still female, right? And so that word emergence, by definition, means that you're exposing a truth. You're working hard to show the world who you authentically are.
Yeah.
And so in this case, that specific language, that mental model is something I think that at least I can understand because, well, that was my experience, right? But it's my feeling that that is more understandable and has a chance of maybe reaching some empathy in people where
Hmm.
you're telling them, like, my gender's always been female. There's an issue. I need to fix it in order for you to show me who I am.
Yeah.
People actually often also respect when others put in hard work to be themselves. Transition, like literally, okay, why are you changing your gender? Like it just that it does not even stand a chance to lead to
Hmm.
empathy, to lead to allyship.
Yeah.
And so that is, and when um, in this case, this type of language, this positive mental model, from my perspective, has the opportunity to have this quote issue of this segment of the workforce
Mhm.
be, shift from being an HR issue or a they them issue, has nothing to do with me, to a human issue. And that's
Exactly.
the start of hopefully inspiration to want to demonstrate increased enterprise allyship.
Yeah, exactly. I love that you are sharing that perspective as well. And in all fairness, it was the first time that I heard through your book. It was the first time that I heard the power of emergence. So I had to look it up. Like, okay, what is emerging? What is that? And the way that you explain it in the book, but also here as well, it makes more sense because when I look at the word transition, you can transition within your career, you can change cars, you can change shoes, and what you have done is so much more because you started with identifying yourself as a woman and seeing that and also becoming that is so much more than just a transition. So I appreciate that you are sharing that perspective of yourself. We are now going to top into a conversation or a question, and it started with the question about, you talk about gender identity is what every person has, and it's not just gender diverse people. Can you explain why you want to boost gender diversity, gender identity instead of gender diversity?
Yeah. Thank you also for this question. I'm so grateful to be here with you today. um, so first, let's acknowledge that everyone, that we are taught, that we know that, and we believe that gender is what's between our legs. What the doctor saw when we were born, that's the gender that's assigned to us, right?
Yeah.
And that's gender as we know it.
Hmm.
In my case, and then many other people who are not, part of the majority that have had to struggle with their gender identity, I experienced what I call a disconnect between my assigned gender and my true gender. And it forced me to recognize that gender identity is a thing through this education and a lot of inner work that I spoke about a bit ago. And most people, understandably, never had to think about their gender identity because it's like breathing. When it exists and when there's no issue, then it's, you don't even think about it, right? So, but the thing is, we all have a gender identity. That's what I learned, right, in
Yeah.
my process. And so, if you'll humor me, I would love to take you on a brief thought exercise, and those listening in, whether now or the recording later. Um, Halloween. I think, is there such a thing as Halloween here in Europe? I know Halloween is in the States on October 31st. I couldn't hear you.
I say they love candy, so they we do have Halloween here.
Yeah. So pretend it's Halloween, right? And you dress up as the gender that you normally, that who you are, how you normally walk the world, the opposite gender, the opposite clothes. You take on the name of the opposite gender, and you have the best time. You go out with friends, you have dinner, you have drinks. It's a wonderful time. Now, if you can really sort of continue with me on this journey, pretend it's the next morning and you wake up and you have to continue to dress like that and use that other name and use a be reference to as those other pronouns for the next 10 weeks. So
Yeah,
all through November, through the Thanksgiving holiday in the States, all through December, with family and friends and all the various holidays that we have, through New Year's evening, through the first week of January. If you can just sit with that for a second and think, and you really have to do this, you're going to have to dress up as the opposite gender and use that other name. If you think about that, I suspect that I suspect that you and some of you listening might feel some discomfort. That
yeah,
discomfort is your gender identity expressing itself,
yeah,
right? So we all have one. It's really hard to connect with. It's why I wrote the memoir. I do believe that the memoir allows the reader to better understand gender identity and perhaps even access their own gender identity. Um, but understanding that, and it goes back to what I said, I think, at the end of the previous question, where we talked about emergence versus transition. When you begin to understand gender identity, hopefully the same thing can happen where this shifts from being HR, them, they, not my problem issue to wait, I've got one too.
yeah,
It becomes more of a human issue.
yeah, definitely. And I really appreciate that you are explaining it in a way that makes everybody understandable instead of sharing something that nobody can relate to. I believe that you are a great storyteller, and the way that you demystify it, it makes sense to a 5-year-old. It makes sense to those who are older that don't understand it or feel triggered or feel some kind of way to not learn. But this is a valuable way to learn and to understand that you're walking in the wrong shoes every day. It's discomfort. Maybe your shoes are too big or maybe your shoes are too small, but still the discomfort is there. So I appreciate that. When it comes to the people in finance and those who are decision makers, they want to know about the money, right? They want to know about, okay, but what's in it for me? Why should I pay attention? And there is a part that you talk about the hidden cost, and I think that you mentioned it also in the beginning about the cost of people not being themselves and practically code switching or not being able to show up the way that they want to be, right? So what are the hidden costs when employees feel uncertainty about whether it's safe to be themselves in the workplace?
Yeah, and I remembered when I said earlier, there was something else that you said that I didn't, and it's
Mhm.
ties to this question a little bit, which is that I wrote my memoir for those that actually are open and want to listen, right? So organizations that are competing on talent, that that want to improve belonging for the workforce, that understand the business case behind it. Most haven't had a chance to really dig deep on this topic yet. That is
Mm.
the organizations I wrote my book for, and that's the business case, right? So now back to this question. Um, so, and let me dial in on the business case briefly, and then I think the numbers are very, they can only go so far. Then I want to tell you my story specifically to talk about those costs. Um, the facts are that 2/3 of gender diverse transgender workforce don't feel like they belong. Gen Z will be 35% of the workforce by 2030.
Yeah,
15 to 17% of Gen Z identifies as gender diverse or transgender. And by the
yeah,
way, this topic matters in the US, at least, even in the US, let me put it that way, to 73% of allies. So
yeah,
people and organizations notice how well others are being treated, and the hidden costs. And we mentioned before, we were talking about productivity, but let me just tell you my experience,
Mhm.
and then I'll tie it back up. But I was doing, objectively speaking, one could argue that I was doing fine in my career before I emerged in 2015 at Deloitte Consulting. I'd been there about 5 years at that point. I was a manager and I was leading two teams, and my teams were doing really well. Um, at the same time, I was carrying something really heavy that I hadn't
Mhm.
figured out myself. Like, again, I hadn't done the inner work yet at this point. I hadn't done all that studying yet. Um, but I was objectively doing fine. But then fast forward, and then went very slow in my emergence. So fast forward like 2+ years after I fully emerged as myself, I noticed such a dramatic difference in how I showed up in the world. Like, I was able to just be more in the moment. Like this moment I'm having with you right now, Vivian, just sitting here and having this conversation and just truly being in the moment and connecting with you. Like I didn't really have a good ability to do that. It was always kind of like a fake it or make it. I'm doing my best, but it was never really, I can just be present and really just be there. Right. And so being in the moment allowed me to then connect with people not only more authentically but more deeply, and that impacted positively throughout my whole life and also in the workplace, right? And so I had more room for creativity. I was more comfortable taking risks. I connected more deeply with my internal clients, my colleagues, those that supported me on my teams, and as a result, I became more productive. My teams became more productive, and I was promoted over a period of 4 years, twice. First from manager to associate vice president, and then from associate vice president to vice president. And so the hidden costs do impact the bottom line. Like, that's what all the studies show. There was a study that McKinsey put out specifically for this segment of the workforce. And this is, again, another US-based study. And I need to get some that are beyond the US,
Mhm.
but most of my career was in the US, which is why I know these numbers. A McKinsey study shows that if we were to close this gap in belonging for the gender diverse transgender workforce, it would add an additional $12 billion, crazy number, like almost unimaginable, to the US economy, right? So, we get everyone in the workforce, we get them to be more productive, right? And then that percolates out in how various ways when people have more money. That's how they calculate that number. But even if it's a tenth that number, like any individual company that's competing on talent that is worried about retention and attraction and productivity, this is a huge opportunity.
Exactly, exactly. And also, what I wanted to share was what I heard from your story before you were able to emerge. Maybe it felt like you were walking on eggshells, or maybe it felt like you could not give, maybe it felt like maybe you're giving 60 to 70% instead of going, the extra mile. And that's also a loss of productivity as well. And you're being cautious. You are operating on a different manual where now you're operating from a manual of value, of space, of clarity, because you are aligned with who you are and how you identify and how you see yourself, that you show up in the way that feels psychologically safe for you, but also show up in a way that where others can learn from you and feel inspired by that. Did I get that right?
I think you did. Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I would say I hadn't put a percentage to it before, but I would say
Mhm.
I was probably showing up at 70% of capacity. My 70% capacity is pretty powerful. But now we're like, on any given day, 90%, depending on how I feel, 80%, 95%. And that's a dramatic difference.
Definitely,
But
definitely.
some people aren't able to show up at 70%. Like I'm very strong and I
Yeah.
could power through, but I powered through. I had to power through my whole life.
You're mentioning something power true, and it reminds me of being the strong person, and the strong person, they also need oxygen. They also have their emotion. They also go through so many places and so many stages throughout life, that this whole power true, or being, you're the strong person or the strong woman or the strong man, I heard that too many times, and now you're saying power true, and it reminds me of that period of being the strong person. Strong people also cry. They go through their emotions, and yes, you power through to the workplace. But how do you feel when you go back home? How do you feel in the weekend?
Exactly. There's lots of words I can use and probably shouldn't be saying right now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
seeing a comment from Ludovine. Hi, Ludovine. Thank you for sharing. So Ludovine is sharing 12 billion productivity gain. If we close the belonging gap, it's an amazing number. It is. It is definitely an amazing number. And we need to tap into that excellence, but also we need to tap into creating spaces where people belong and people can connect with not only the company mission but also with the team, also create spaces or work on recipes where people feel like they can effectively collaborate or communicate with each other instead of seeing things only as black and white, or you're this or you're that and therefore I enemify you or you enemify me. There's
Mhm.
so much more potential when we see each other and when we have that conversation with each other. So thank
Yeah,
you, Ludovic.
100%.
Going to the next question, and that is what role? Oh, oh, this is a question. Sorry, this is a question from the previous trainer. But I want to ask you. You are telling stories. You're hosting fire chat as well. Why did you choose storytelling as your way of educational tool for leaders rather than traditional training? And what do you see as traditional training? Let's start with what is, in your view, traditional training.
Yeah. Um, Traditional training is where you sit in a room with other people, or you're, consuming something online, like a pre-structured course where you get information fed to you. Um, on this topic these days, and even the companies I worked at, it was, you're taking your online course, and now you have to take your course that tells you, what some do's and don'ts as it relates to people who have their gender not on the binary
Yeah,
or have transgender medical history. It doesn't really help you understand. It doesn't help deliver any empathy, which I think is important for this particular topic, right? So I chose, so training happens to you, and storytelling is something that you can actually experience.
mm,
And a book is powerful, like the kind of book I've written, because those that choose to read it have already made a choice
yeah,
that they're invested in. They've picked up the book, they're invested in experiencing it. And neuroscience shows us that um, when people receive information through a story where they're able to actually walk the other person's shoes, things happen in our brains, like neural pathways go in a certain way that allows us to truly connect with them in a way that training can't.
yeah,
And um, I mean, again, I'm going to harp on this number, but 2/3 of the gender diverse transgender workforce don't feel like they belong. Companies have been trying for many years to
yeah,
try to close that gap. The best companies try, right? It's not like it's been ignored, but they do it through training, right? So we
yeah.
know it's not working. And so, that is exactly why I wrote my book. Um, that way folks can, like, in their private space, in their own mind, in their own pace, learn a story like us humans have since caveman times. Apparently, we were telling stories. So, cave person times.
Storytelling, when you have a way of telling stories in a captivating way where people don't even need PowerPoint slides, right? Or don't even need to read PowerPoint slides. So the way that I do things is if I share more than 6 words on my slide, I've done something wrong, because I want people to connect with what I have to say.
Mm,
It doesn't come from them reading. Sometimes the reading is necessary when you are sharing things from a scientific perspective, but I do believe that we as human, we have a way to digest information, digest storytelling, digest the way that somebody is sharing their perspective, and so that you can have the opportunity to walk a mile in somebody's shoes and to understand that their story could also be your story, or could be a loved one's story, or could be somebody else that you are connected with. So I get where you are coming from, and we need more storytellers in the workplace, definitely more engaging storytellers in the workplace.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I hope that people do read my book. Again, I'm just so gender identity is just so this crazy foreign concept, right? And then here I am saying not only is it I'm acknowledging it's a crazy foreign concept, but you have one, like everyone has one. So I think people are also interested in learning something more about themselves. And so that's another hope I have for my book, is that they connect with it personally. This is not just a they them issue. This is also a me issue, me, the reader, me.
Add something to those who are watching or listening and are thinking about investing in a book. Once you have read it, or once you want to learn more about the topic, just buy the book for the whole team, or maybe for a loved one, or maybe for somebody else, right? It's not only about you going through that book. It's also something, it could also be something valuable that you can go through that book together with other people, so that you can maybe host a small book club, or maybe invite Ella, invite her to do a deep dive on the book, so that you learn more about the power of emergence and what it means to amplify gender identity.
Thank you. There's actually two tools that have been developed to support the book. One is a reader's guide. So there's about 15 chapters, and the reader's guide has, for each chapter in the book, the reader's guide has themes and also individual reflections. And thirdly, and this is really important, leadership and enterprise reflections.
Yeah.
And I do thank you for mentioning that. I fireside chats for organizations, and that comes with a very robust question bank, over
Mhm.
50 questions in there. But they can ask me anything. But if for those struggling to find questions, there's 50 questions I can give you that that we can have a conversation in a safe space in the
Mhm.
context of me as the author talking about a topic that normally people don't are afraid to ask questions about, as they should. Like, some questions are very personal, but I'm willing and want to talk about it in the context of a fireside chat.
Yeah. It's really helpful that you are sharing your perspective. I mean, I can understand it when I show up in my sessions or training. I also talk about my personal journey, or my intersectional lens, which people don't always see or don't always know, because they assume something. And to have that, let's say, that deeper dive, the when you look at the iceberg, there's the top of the iceberg, but with your book and also with what I'm doing, we are diving deeper, so that people can see that there is more to people that meets the eye. So
Yeah.
really helpful that you're sharing that. Is there a question that people are afraid to ask out loud, especially leaders?
Yeah.
And what will be the question, and what will be your answer?
I'm actually going to give you two. There's two that are coming up for me. One, I get asked, or people approach me in private quite a bit, and the other one,
Mhm.
kind of a mix. But the first one that comes up for me is when people just tell me, like, Ella, I I can't understand this topic. I don't get it. Like, no matter how hard I try, I don't think I'm never going to understand it. And my response to that is, that's okay. Like, I get it. It's very hard to understand, and acknowledging that is a perfect starting point. There's always incremental gains that can be made, and then I do encourage them to read my book, because I do
Yeah.
believe it helps people understand gender identity a little bit more. The
Mhm.
second question I get asked a lot is, um, I'm terrified I'm going to mess up a pronoun, or and how do I handle that? Like, I don't want to mess it up. And my answer to that is, it's also that's okay. Like, you're gonna mess it up. I mess up pronouns when I'm talking about people that haven't had my medical history. My brain sometimes moves at a different pace than my mouth, and the wrong pronoun pops out. It's like, oh, but the when that happens, and it's gonna happen, it happens to all of us. the best thing to do is just apologize, say the other pronoun, and move on. Stay in the conversation with the person. Don't catastrophize. Don't make it about yourself. It looks like,
That part.
oh, sorry,
That
she,
part.
and then
Yeah.
back into the conversation or stay in the conversation.
That part.
And if you know them well, and if there's other people around, if you know, it might be a good thing to pull them aside later and say, hey, like, I know I did that. I'm trying my best.
Hmm.
I see you for who you are. I'll get
Yeah.
better. I may
Yeah.
mess up again, but I'll get better. You know, and that's great.
We live in a day and age where it seems like when people make a mistake, they are not being forgiven and they will forever be branded as that person who made a mistake. So I also want to encourage those who are on the receiving end of that error or that mishap. Try to have empathy for the other person as well, because some people are really trying to do their best and sometimes they make a mistake, but the value in making a mistake is when you apply your growth mindset, next time you'll do better and you'll learn from that again. So we need to provide grace not only for the person who is on the receiving end, but also the person who is doing, let's say, quote, the harm in this occasion as well.
Yeah, agree.
We are at the end, and I know that it's the 1st of June, 2026, and I'm about to ask you a question about 2030.
Okay.
So what is your wish for 2030 when it comes to humanizing the workplace and gender identity in the workplace?
Okay. So yeah, it's a good bookend with the first question you asked me with the definition of humanizing the workplace. Um, and it's 3.5 years out. That's not too far out. My wish is that for companies that are competing on talent, that want to improve belonging, that they've begun to recognize that gender identity is something that they want to help their workforce understand. Like it becomes part of the lexicon, just like neurodivergence or, you know, religion, or whether someone's able-bodied or not. Like we recognize that everyone has a body. We recognize everyone has 2 legs and 2 arms, and everyone has 2 eyes, right? We may not all see through them, but most people, most of us. So everyone has a gender identity, right? So
Yeah,
that idea that there's a gender identity and that we're helping our workforce understand that, that is the very first step to improving belonging for the gender diverse and transgender workforce.
exactly. Exactly. There's so much more to people that meets the eye that just assuming that everybody fits the standard norm, which is what is standard and who is part of the standard, right? So we need to apply more of our intersectional lens and understand that what is for you, what is your standard, what is your value doesn't mean that it's the same for everybody else. And I agree. It feels like we only have like 3 years left because 2030 is around the corner. But then again, there are so many months, so many days left that we can
Yeah.
invest more in amplifying gender identity and understanding that just because you see yourself like that doesn't mean that everybody else sees themselves the same way. And that's why I believe that your book is really a value for those who want to learn more about gender identity and have some language for addressing other people in a respectful way as well.
Thank you, Vivian.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having this conversation. For those of you who are watching, if you have any questions, please share them on LinkedIn or within the YouTube call as well. I'll make sure that Ella gets them. Or if you have any questions for me, let me know as well. It was a joy, Ella, to have this conversation, and thank you. Until next time.
Likewise, thank you so much for having me on. It was an honor.
Bye.
Okay,
Bye, everybody.
bye.